Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome back to Chasing Legends. Please do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell out there for notifications for more episodes and other material we'll be releasing, and comment. We always like the comments. We like to read through them, see how we're doing, what you think, what you're looking forward to, or other material you might want to see us do. One other thing to add this week, I'm sure everybody's aware, we have the Legend of the Superstition Mountains t-shirts through represent.com. Well, this week, we're not only doing special pricing on those, but we're introducing the Dutch Hunter Rendezvous shirt. So that'll be kind of something very cool and unique. So get in there and grab those up while we kind of do a bit of a special pricing to kind of get everybody outfitted, looking styling and profiling in those, all right? This week I want to address a question I get, and people do ask at a time, and I know I've kind of covered it in lives and other times in different periods, but I don't think we've covered it here. And we had kind of some Chasing Legends episodes with Frank and Woody concerning this. How did I meet Frank and Woody? And I met Frank Augustine actually at the Dutch Hunter Rendezvous. I can't remember which year, Frank probably remembers, but it was the first year he came out to the rendezvous. Frank could tell you better how he knew. And I'd got up in the morning, it was Saturday morning, and I got up to get a cup of coffee. And Brad Cooper and his wife Gloria were camped up about 50 yards north of me. I was at the very, very southern part of the base camp, the lower camp, camped out with my Bronco. And I walked up, and Brad and Gloria had just gotten up, and they hadn't started breakfast or any coffee, and I was looking for some coffee. I usually run a cold camp awful lot of the time. So I had my coffee cup, and I walked up to the next camp, which was Joe Roboto and his wife Carolyn. So they were making biscuits and gravy, which I'm not a fan of the gravy, but I will take the biscuits. So I got a cup of coffee, got a biscuit, talked to Joe and Carolyn for a few minutes. There was a group of people there eating, and so I worked my way back to Brad and Gloria. And we were sitting around, they had a little pull-along trailer they had there. And I remember we were kind of standing around talking and having some coffee, and Brad and I were smoking some cigarettes, and this guy walked up. And he kind of just walked right up to me. I do not believe he introduced himself, shook my hand, or told me who he was. I don't think he said, "Are you Wayne?" or anything like that. He just walked right up to me and started asking me questions. And it was like he was that far from my nose. And it was like, okay. And I'm just standing there like, and then I would take like a half step back and take a drag off my cigarette, and I'd look at Gloria and Brad, and they're kind of looking at him, and Frank, who I didn't even know who it was, just kept just questions and comments. Well, you know, I'm an investigator, and I do this, and I investigate, and he just was full bore Frank. But I didn't know who the guy was. And I really don't remember him telling me who he was, and I'll be able to explain this later. So he kept this up, and I kept doing that little walking back thing, do about a half step, take a drag off my cigarette, and then he'd move back in. And we did this dance, probably 20, 30 feet right out of Brad and Gloria's camp down the hill. And then Frank looked around and realized like where we were, and he looked at me, and then he just abruptly stopped. It was just like cold turkey. I don't remember all the stuff he was saying and the things he was asking, but it was pure Frank. And then it just abruptly stopped, and then he just wandered off with the cigar and everything, cigar in the mouth, and just and then he just turned and walked away. And I'm just standing there with my cup of coffee, my cigarette, and I'm like, okay. So I remember Randy Wright came down, and then Brad came over, and they're like, what is this guy, the FBI? He's, you got to watch out for this guy and all. But there was something about Frank I really liked. It was just the way he was so direct and everything. And while I wasn't quite into the 8 inches from my nose thing, Frank's eyes never leave you. He just stare you straight down in the eyes and just keep talking. And I was just totally amused. So I was like, I kind of like this guy. I don't know who I don't know who he is. And I think someone mentioned, something more about him. I didn't know much. And I had no other interaction with Frank until the next rendezvous. And Frank shows up. And at that point, I got to know him as Frank. That was it. And we did a bit of a hike or something, and Frank came up, and I just remember, okay, it's this guy Frank. I guess he was a cop and all this stuff. But that's all I kind of knew. And I didn't really know who he was. And I think Frank would tell you, we didn't know each other. I knew, talking to Tom Collimore, Tom talked very fondly of Frank. So Tom and Frank had hit it off and developed a friendship. So I'm kind of, no matter what, thinking, I think the guy Frank's cool. And, I think he's all right. Tom likes him, So, everybody else wasn't quite sure what to make of Frank, because he's a force of nature and personality. Love you, Frank. So we move forward, and A&E and History Channel and Go Lucky have contacted me and want to move forward with this TV show. And there were so many different things they were trying to involve. We're going to have 2 treasure hunting groups, and maybe sometime I'll talk really in depth about the pre-production of that whole thing, because it went on for months. And I kept putting names out, and they kept saying, no, okay, we want you to be part of this. We need you to be part of this. We need you to be part of this part of this. And my role kept increasing, and I was helping them and talking them through things and doing interviews. And then they sent me this sheet and said, we want you to do, they sent me a video camera, and they wanted me to discuss, say positive things about the individual and negative. So I had a little short bio paragraph, and on it was these list of names. Robert Kreider was on there. I'm trying to remember some of the other names. A guy named Dwayne Bailey. Randy Wright wasn't on there, so I called Randy. I said, your name's not on my list. I don't know if that's because we're going to be in separate groups or we're together and we're supposed to be both talking about these guys. And he talked to me and we looked at his list. He said, yeah, you're not on my list. He said, that's kind of weird because we know each other so well. So maybe they're just wanting us to talk about these other guys we're going to have in the group. And I was going through the names, and I'm like, I don't know any of these people, except I think Mike McChesney was on my list. And I said, I know Mike out of California. I said, I know who Mike is. But I said, I don't know, none of the other names are familiar people. And I said, I gave them such a list of names. Paul Shimmick was in there. Initially, it was another list. Jesse and Josh Feldman were in that. But I'd given them, Brad Cooper was one of I gave them such a list of names of people to utilize. They wanted people under the age of 50, around that area, to be involved in the program. They didn't want anyone older, which was surprising, because what came next is I asked Randy, who's this guy Frank Augustine? Who's that guy? And he's like, oh, that's that cop dude at the rendezvous. And I'm like, really? Huh? Because I didn't know Frank's last name. So I was looking at it and kind of the stuff, and I think I have the bio somewhere. I think it says he was, the Scotts Township detective and swift boat guy and all this, some other stuff. But it didn't have, anything I really, I didn't know that stuff about him, and it didn't really give me much. So we had to do these little bits where you're trying to talk schmack about the person and talk nice about the person. So I did my little bits for each one, which I found really difficult, because if you don't know anyone at all, it's not even trying to be nice or stuff. You're kind of a nice guy and you don't want to do that. It's hard to make up stuff about someone you have no idea, and that's where we began looking at Facebook. Randy and I did, and started looking up different people on Facebook. So when we went to film, Frank's there, and I'd already met Frank a couple different times, and Randy had kind of brought me up to speed. This is Frank Augustine. And they were all put up at a Holiday Inn. At this time, and the way the show's done is meant to really keep us on an equal level as much as everybody can feel, So the other guys, nobody feels left out, and nobody knows what's really going on. I did not stay at the Holiday Inn, okay? They all got the Holiday Inn, which Frank wasn't a big fan of. Most of them weren't. I do remember that. And I kind of would show up in the morning and with production, and then we would go do stuff, and I would go out to lunch with production most of the time. And they gave, they had other guys eat. I think they took them out to a place, out to the Gold Canyon Resort, and they got breakfast there. And they were able to have breakfast there while they brought us into the production rooms to do videos and stuff. So I talked to Frank a little bit there. And I don't even think he introduced me to Woody. I don't even remember seeing Woody. I knew Mike McChesney was there and a couple other people I was slightly familiar with. And we all, and the group of us that kind of knew we were Dutch hunters, kind of came down and talked. I met Casey there, and there was other people like, oh, where are you from? And there was no Magnuson, there was no Deleel at this point, and I don't remember really seeing Woody. I don't think Frank introduced me to Woody till after all this. So I remember at one point, I knew who Woody was because of probably something Frank had said, but they're down in a production room doing these interviews. So we would be in there and you would sit there and they'd ask you questions. And they were doing the same thing they'd done with me before, is where we want you to kind of talk, say, hey, Wayne's a great guy, Wayne's the most knowledgeable guy. And then we want to go, what does Wayne know? Who does Wayne think he is? I know all that, they wanted both kind of do two sides of a coin so they could use, whatever version they wanted to use for whatever they're using. And there's probably 15, 20 people involved in this. And I really didn't get to do much to do that. I was just kind of there, and then they would ask me, what do you think of so-and-so? What do you think of this person? And this is where I'm learning, kind of like, it's weird, because I thought I was a production consultant. I was working with where they were going to do locations, introducing to various people, helping them to work with talent. I didn't really want a lot of camera time, and no one was telling me anything. I signed a contract about stuff, and that's all I knew. But I was treated more different than everyone else, and the obvious reasoning actually for that wasn't hitting me. I just thought I'm not talent like everyone else. I'm more involved in the production, so these guys are talking to me. So I was a bit naive of what was actually happening around me while this is happening until later, and that was actually Frank that introduced the concept of, you don't realize it's your show. The show's about you. And then I actually went to a producer who told me, yes, A&E and History Channel said this whole thing floats. It's you, and then the way this works. Anyways, Frank had mentioned, you got a production, they got Woody down there, he's talking schmack about you. Well, I'm not really caring because I don't understand why anybody's really talking about me, but I kind of don't have thin skin, and I really don't know somebody. Doesn't matter because I don't know what they could be saying. I know it's just going to be made up BS. So I went down to watch, what's going on. And I walked in the room, and Woody's doing his thing. And he's going on, and Woody's doing what I would call akin to a wrestling promo. And I'm just watching him do the wrestle promo. And, he's so intensely in it. And then Woody's eyes shift, and Woody sees me standing off behind the lights. And I'm just standing there. And I don't really know who Woody was. And if we were introduced, it was something very brief. We didn't talk or anything. So I just know it's this guy that kind of looks a bit like Santa Claus in a silly hat, and he's up there and he's just going off about me, and I don't even know who you are. So I'm just kind of smiling and laughing, and then Woody kind of starts to fumble, and then it just changes, because what we all know is Woody's a super nice guy. He's a really nice guy, and I think I didn't realize, and I found this out with all the guys, is if they had to be critical or say stuff, and I'll say this about Magnuson, Deleel, even Frank, it's very difficult to even pretend and put on the smack when the guy you're doing it to is behind the camera. I always was there because I was very interested in the production side, so I would sit there and watch for no other intention, just to see how they're doing. And I learned I had to stay out of their view a bit more, because it causes you a problem. It's hard to be as passionate or create this BS when the guy's standing there looking at you smiling, because I'm not taking it personal. I know we're riding in the same truck afterwards, and it's like there's no hurt feelings about it. But I found out right in that moment that, okay, Woody's a good guy, man. I could just tell. And then right after that is the next thing I know is we're sitting around, and Woody goes into his, and anyone knows Woody is like, yeah, guy, hey, guy, hey, yeah, guy, and he has this just way of talking. And we hit it off after that. So, and then I realized the partnership and everything with Woody and Frank. And at that given time, just to kind of close this off a bit there, is I wasn't sure what show they were going to do, and I'll talk at length at sometime here about the different ideas of production, because they had this whole thing. There's 3 different production companies out here, and they're getting ready to film these, and we're trying to get ahead of everybody and get our budget set and get our sizzle reel in and get everything moving and get our casting done before these other guys move forward. We got them they're trailing behind us. So I knew by the time we were kind of good way through doing the pilot stuff and putting together the casting call, which we were doing it all in one big moment, 1 week, that Frank and Woody are definitely part of this thing. But there's all these other people that are kind of around us, and I'm not sure how they're fitting in, and they're asking me, what do you think of so-and-so? What do you think of this? Do we need someone else? Is there anyone that fits? And we're trying different dynamics. You know, there's an archaeologist at one point, and there's, you know, kind of the new age prospector at another point. And one of the concerns I had constantly was the crossover, because what we ended up with a bit in our episode is Woody's a prospector and Frank's a metal detector, but then we brought in the metal detector. We brought in the 3 guys from Idaho, with Eric Magnuson was a part of, and brought them in, and it was kind of getting like too many people, because you're just trying to like, I don't know, we're only spending very brief moments of time, because I was shuttling between people. I got to spend time with Casey a little bit, but you know, because we both smoked, and we'd sit out and smoke and talk together outside of buildings. But a lot of the times, one of the problems is I wasn't really getting any chemistry going with anyone, so I didn't really have much of an opinion because I wasn't spending time. I got to spend time with Woody and Frank, and then what sealed the deal is Frank and I and Woody were talking, and the producers heard us, and we're always mic'd up, and we have live mics on, and we were talking about Woody and Frank's claim, and Frank said, hey, I've been trying to tell you, we got to get out there when we're done with this, whatever we're doing with this, we got to get down there and chase up that. We want to see if there's a lode. I know there's a lode mine up north of there, but I don't believe this gold worked its way through that. There's got to be something more, you know. And it became the storyline. So what happens is they're hearing Frank and Woody and I suddenly talk, and Frank's going on about, this is Woody, he's my partner, he's the guy I've been telling you about, I got this claim. Now I kind of vaguely remembered it, and Frank had been talking to me about that. The rendezvous, they got this claim, they've been pulling gold out, he wants to search the lode, there's a lode mine, but I don't believe that's where it came from, I'd like to search this area. And production hearing it takes us aside, and then they start talking to us, and they're like, hey, instead of these 2 competing groups and all these other ideas and using the archaeologist and all these other people and the new age guy and all this is kind of a cool story, which suddenly means if we're going to run 5 people on this, we got 3 filled already. So it became basically, at that point, I realized it was me, it was Frank, and it was Woody, and then it was whatever holes they wanted to fill after that fact. And that's another story for another day. But that's kind of how I met Frank and Woody. So it was really through the rendezvous, and then Woody definitely through doing the TV show. I don't know if he would have ever come down for the rendezvous, or if I would have ever met Woody or known him otherwise. So thank you for watching. Hit subscribe, hit the notifications bell, leave a comment if you so desire, and hit represent.com. Like I said, we got the Legend of the Superstition Mountains shirts, specially reduced price. And then we also we're introducing the Dutch Hunter Rendezvous shirts, which are really spiffy and nice. Come in the all-time best color of all, black. That's all they come in, it's just black, okay? So thank you for watching Chasing Legends, and we'll catch you again next week. Take care.